Hey guys, how's it going? This is Simon, and this is the fourth and final video of the 4 videos I'm creating to help you prepare for Test 2 in the UNIX security course at Mohawk College. In this video, I'm going to be working on Module 5, which is all about public key cryptography. So this guy right here, whenever you're ready, feel free to click on the Lab 05 link. If you haven't checked out the first 3 videos I created, go ahead and check them out, especially the first one, because in the first one, I do explain that we will go through the entire lab in these videos. The only thing that I won't be able to cover with you is how to complete things that you're going to have to submit to your teachers for grades. So any questions you have to answer and submit to your teacher, I won't be able to go over that kind of stuff. If you have questions about it, go see your teacher, but everything else is game. The other thing I did cover was how to prepare VirtualBox Manager for these labs. So if I just minimize this right here, here's VirtualBox Manager, and the very quick answer to this is you want to make sure in VirtualBox Manager that your DHCP server option is not enabled. You'll also want to go into Task Manager and make sure there's no process or task called VirtualBox DHCP or VBox DHCP. So if you see that, just make sure you end the task and you should be good. And finally, you'll want to make sure your VirtualBox host-only network adapter is set to the right IP address and subnet mask, because we do want our host machine to communicate with our virtual machine. So make sure you do that. And if you don't know how, check out the first video, like I said, because I do show you step by step how to do that. Once that's done, go ahead and start your build server. The build server I'm using is the one that I created in Lab 2, but you can use the build server you created in Lab 1. That'll be fine as long as you have one that is working. So here we go. I'll just make this a little bit bigger. And once it loads in, feel free to log in as root, and let's explain a little bit about what we're going to be doing really quickly. So if I go to this overview, we can see our build server is going to be on our network, and we're also going to make a new virtual machine that's going to have the hostname of Yoda and the IP address of 10.1.1.10. If we go to part A, which is where we're going to start, there are a couple more requirements. Namely, we're going to be creating a user with our own name in it. And so that's going to mean you're going to have a user for yourself, and I'm also going to suggest we're going to have a user called Alice and Bob as well. So if you don't have them in your Kickstart file, put them in there as well. The reason for that is this lab is very reliant on you swapping your public key with friends and then swapping files essentially that are going to be encrypted and signed with your friends and see how things work. Unfortunately, in this video, I don't have a way of doing that to prove it, so the only thing I'm going to be able to do is actually use 2 users and send it back and forth on the same virtual machine. So you'll still get the same results, but we're going to have to do a couple extra steps, and I'll show you how to do it. It's not hard, it just takes a little bit of time, but I'll try to do it as quickly as possible in a way that's not going to be completely boring for you. So once we have Alice, Bob, and we have ourselves as users, we're also going to make sure that they have passwords, and once we do that, we should be good to go. That's all you have to do for part A. So this is actually a very simple build. So let's just create that right now. The only thing that we have to modify is the default Kickstart file. So let's sign in as root, and the very first step is, I put in the wrong password. The very first step is to go into the VI editor and edit this file right here. So it is /var/www/html/kickstart with a capital K /default.ks. So go ahead and edit this file in the VI editor. And the line that we're going to edit right away is this network line right here. So the second line, we're going to be editing this line a bit. Go ahead and hit I. The first thing we're going to do is change the boot proto option from DHCP to static. You can leave the device as ETH0, but we're going to change the hostname to Yoda. And then we're going to put in the IP option, and it's going to be 10.1.1.10. And we're going to put the net mask option in there, which is going to be 255.255.255.0. So make sure it looks like this. Once you're ready to go, we can move down to add the user. So what I like to do is go down to where it says skip X, which is right here. And once you see skip X, you can put your you can put your users in there. And I'm going to start with Alice. So I'm going to say user --name equals Alice --password equals user pass. I'm not going to put a group in there. I don't think it's necessary for this actual lab. So I'll put in Bob as well. I'm going to use Bob. You don't necessarily need to, because you may not use it, but I'm going to just make a point with Bob at one point in this lab. And then I'll put my name in. Just put your name in. And there we go. So that's all we need to do. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and save it, quit, and let's build this virtual machine. So I'm going to go into the VirtualBox Manager, and you should know how to do this by now, but we're going to type in Yoda, Linux, Red Hat 64. Every other option is fine. Next, create, next, create. Go ahead and go into settings, go to system, and you're going to want to make sure that your boot order looks like this. And once you've done that, you'll want to make sure that your processor is probably one up. You can do whatever you'd like, but one should be sufficient. Go to your network and make sure you change NAT to host only adapter. Go to advanced, change your adapter type to fast3, and that should be it. You don't have to worry about your MAC address because we didn't configure anything with the dhcpd.conf file. So I'm going to say OK and start this virtual machine. Just minimize this. I'll minimize the build server. We don't need that now. Hit cancel and just make sure that it loads properly. So I'll just boost this guy up. And so far so good. I'm just going to wait till I get to that blue and gray screen, because usually in the beginning is where I find I'll have problems if I did anything wrong. So if I find that the first couple seconds of that screen goes by normally, then we're probably okay. And that looks really, really good. Okay, so I'm just going to move on and explain what we're going to do. We just completed part A, so we're going to move down to part B. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing GNUPG. So one thing you need to know is GPG is already in our virtual machine. So once this loads, you can see that this is something that's already in our virtual machine and we can use it. But for the purposes of this lab, we're going to actually use a older version of this, and we're only going to be using this for our users, which is yourself, and I'm going to be using it for Alice. If you want to follow along, then you'll use it for Alice as well, but we're not going to be using it for Bob. We're not going to be using it for root. So what that means is instead of installing it into the system, we're only going to be building it. So once we download this file and we put it in the home directory of ourselves and Alice, we're going to unpack it, and then we're going to build it but not install it. So we can look at the README. It's going to tell us how to do everything we want to do, and we're going to basically stop short of when it tells us to install everything. And that way it won't go into the system. That way when Bob and root decide to use GPG, it's going to use the version that came with this virtual machine. When myself, so my user Simon, and Alice use it, it's going to use the older version. Now, it says that we're probably going to get some errors, and we're going to have to basically install some dependencies if we're going to get this to work. And that's probably the case for yourself. I've made sure that I'm going to get this error so I can show you how to get past this. It's pretty simple. We just have to install two pieces of software or packages, and like I said, it's very, very simple. But once we do that, then all we have to do is create an alias for each of these users, Alice and in my case Simon, your case yourself, and the alias is going to change the GPG from accessing this version that came with the virtual machine to the new version. And we'll test it, and that's all we have to do for part B. So as much as it seems like there's a lot, this actually isn't too bad. It's pretty quick to do. I'll show you how to do it, and hopefully this will be painless. So let's just log in as root, and we'll say put in the password first. And I'm going to show you, if you type in GPG question mark, which is the first thing it asks us to do, we can see we get a lot of options, so it's obviously all there. And we can say where is GPG, which is the second command it asks us to do, and it's going to tell us it's in user bin GPG. So that's cool. Let's log out and log in as ourselves. So I'm just going to exit and log in as myself, Simon, and I am going to type in my password, which was user pass, and what I'm going to do is type in GPG version, and if I type enter, we can see that my version is 2.0.14, so that's what came with the virtual machine already. But we want this version right here, 1.4.11. So we're going to download this and put it in the home directory of Simon and Alice, and then we're going to basically build it for ourselves only, and we're going to create an alias so that when I type in GPG version, this is going to change. It's no longer going to be 2.0.14, it's going to be 1.4.11. So let's do that. What I'm going to do is go into my command prompt. I'll go in as administrator just in case. And let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Font. There we go. So the command I'm going to use is pscp, and you're going to find the file that you downloaded. I already downloaded it, so make sure that you click on this and download it. And I'm going to access it, which is in my downloads directory. So it's C users Simon downloads and GNU, and I'm just going to hit tab. That should give me the file, and I'm going to put it on Simon at 10.1.1.10, and we're going to put this in my home directory. So I'm going to hit enter. It's going to give me a warning. I'm just going to say yes and then put in Simon's password, and it will send it to my home directory. So there's my warning. I'm just going to say yes, put in my password, and that worked. So we're going to do the exact same thing, PSCP, the file, but instead of Simon, we're going to say Alice at 10.1.1.10, and we're going to put it in the home/Alice directory as well. So let's just put that in. Put her password in, which was user pass, and that worked as well. So now we can close this because both Alice and Simon have this file or this archive in our home directories. So I'm going to hit the X, and now I'm in Yoda. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this for Simon, and then I will go through this with Alice, but I'll do it a little bit quicker with Alice because I've already shown you with the Simon account. So let's just clear this. Let's type the ls command, and we can see that it's here. So we're going to have to basically unpack it. So we're going to say tar-xzf, and then the file name. Type enter. Ls reveals we now have a new directory. So let's just go into that directory. Let's say cdg, enter. I'm going to type in ls again to see what's in this directory, and we can see there's a ton of stuff, and it's very, very confusing. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at the README. So we've already downloaded the file. We've put the source tarball in our home directories. We've unpacked it, so now we have to build it. So the very first step is look at the README to figure out what we're going to do. And I'm just going to say cat README, and I'm going to put that pipe over to more. So this is the file. It's massive, but what we're looking for, if you hit the spacebar twice, is the installation. And in the installation, we have several steps. We've already done 1, 2, and 3. So we can skip those. What we're going to end up doing is starting with 4. We're going to be basically going and saying ./configure. And this is where we're going to get our error. This is where you're probably going to find that it doesn't work, and I'm going to show you how to make sure it works. And then once this is done, we're going to say make, and that's going to do its thing. It's going to take some time, but it will eventually get there. And then the 6th option says make install, but we don't want to install, so we're actually going to stop at 5. So once you hit 5, we don't care about anything else after that, because like I said, we're going to build. We don't want to install for everyone, just build for ourselves. So we're going to do this for Simon first, and then I'm going to do this for Alice, and then we can move on to the next step. So what we're going to do is just cancel out of there. I'll clear this. Let's type in ./configure and see what kind of problems we get. So this is what it'll look like. If it works, it will actually do a lot. You're going to see a lot of stuff, checking and configuring and stuff like that. So if you get a small screen like this, it's probably not working. And I can see right here, we can say checking for GCC, no. At one point it checks for make, so whether you make sets make, it says no. So what we're really looking for is to download and install the dependencies, which is make and GCC. If we do those two, that'll be sufficient, but we have to do it as root. So I'm going to clear this. I'm going to say su to sudo into root. Type in root's password. Now that I'm root, we can say yum install make and GCC. So you can put the two together. When you're ready, hit enter. Say yes and yes. Done. So now that that's done, we can exit. Now we are our user. You can see I am Simon. So now I'm going to try this again. I'm still in this directory. Make sure you're in the GNUPG-1.4.11 directory. Type ./configure, enter, and you're going to see now this is what it should look like. It's going to do this for a few seconds, and eventually it's going to stop. And once it does, we're going to say make. So there we go. We just basically got this configured. Now we're going to make this, which is going to build everything. So just type make and hit enter. And this takes some time. So while this is doing its thing, let's do this for Alice really quickly. I'm going to go into PuTTY, type 10.1.1.10 and make this a little bit bigger just in case you'd like to see this, even though we're going to do this pretty quick. So I'm going to say Alice, user pass, and look at my home directory. We're going to tar-xzf this archive. ls, we can see we have a new directory, so we'll cd into that directory. We don't have to log in as root anymore because we already have the make and gcc installed. So all we're going to do is ./configure, let it do its thing. And then type make, and it'll do its thing as well. So I'll minimize this for now. Now that we have this, what we have to do is really important. We have to, once we're done all of this, basically create a bash shell alias so that when you type GPG, it uses this version, which is an older version, 1.4.11, instead of that 2.0.14. So what we do is this. Let's just clear this. We're going to type in vi to get into the vi editor, home/your name, so in my case Simon, and then .bashrc. So this is the file that we're going to be editing. And if you hit enter, you're going to see the file is already created. We're just going to be adding to it. So if I go down where it says fi, just underneath it, I'm going to create my alias. So the alias looks like this. It's going to be alias gpg equals, and in quotes, you're going to put in the file that you want to have GPG reference. So what is that file? Let's go back to Alice. So you can see Alice is done. If you do a find, you can say find, and if you want, you can do it in this present directory. You're going to be finding something with the name GPG. And we can see here that it's in a directory called G10, and it's just called GPG. So it's basically going to be in home Alice or home Simon or home your name / GNUPG-1.4.11 /G10 / GPG. So that's what we're going to be putting in here as our alias. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to say home Simon, because I'm in Simon's account right now, GNUPG-1.4.11 /G10 /GPG. So go ahead and put that in. Just make sure it's your name, not mine, unless you use my name, in which case I'm flattered. But yeah, once you're done this, go ahead and save it and quit. And now the most important thing is to actually exit out of your account. So log out of your account. Now log back in, Simon user pass, and see what your version is. GPG -- version. So if I hit enter, we can see now I have 1.4.11. And if you just want to make sure that it's not installed, you want to make sure that not everyone can use that version, go ahead and exit and log in as Bob or root. And I'm going to say GPG -- version for Bob, and he's got 2.0.14. So we did everything right, and that is how you're going to have to do it. We're going to have to make sure we do this for Alice as well. So I'm going to say vi /home /Alice .bashrc. Just going to do the same thing. Alias GPG equals, and I'm going to say home Alice GNUPG-1.4.11 /G10 GPG quote. That should be good. Let me just get out of Bob. We'll just check it really quickly with Simon. And then there we go, GNUPG-1.4.11 G10 GPG. So that looks good. So I'm just going to save this and quit. And once again, we're going to exit, which will get us out of PuTTY, and we can go right back in. So 10.1.10, Alice, user pass, and if I type in GPG version, now she has 1.4.11 as well. So I'll make this bigger, and then we can move on to the next steps. There we go. So let's just bring this over here. I'm Simon on Yoda right now, and if you've done what I've done, you've basically completed part B, we basically created this alias, we logged out and logged back in, and then we checked the version. So we can go down to part C, and this is all about creating and managing keys. So what we're going to be doing is creating a private and a public key, and then we're going to be giving it to the other user. So Simon's going to create it and then give my public key to Alice. Alice is going to create her own private and public key and give her public key to Simon, and that way we're going to be able to send files back and forth. We're going to send signed files, we're going to send encrypted files. So there's a bit of back and forth with this, but you'll see it's not too complicated. It's just we're going to be doing a couple more steps than the lab requires, because instead of having our friends with us and having a TFTP server to upload everything to, we're just going to do it back and forth on our system with 2 different users. So let's start with this, create a pair for yourself. And we're going to start with step 1, which says make sure that you are who you are. So just say who am I. We can see I am Simon, so we should be good. I'm going to clear this, and we're going to start with step 2 now. So it says generate a key pair for yourself. We're going to type in this command gpg-gen-key. So gpg-gen for generate -key. Hit enter. And we get these options. So it says please select what kind of key you want, and there's 4 options. They want us to select RSA and RSA, so that's the default, so you can just hit enter. And then it says what key size do you want? 2048 is the default, and that's what we're going to use, so just hit enter. And then it's going to ask us basically for the lifespan. So the key lifespan we're going to use is 2 years. So if you see here, the option is basically you can have just days, weeks, months, and years. So we're going to say 2Y for 2 years. Hit enter. And then it's going to ask if it's correct. You're going to say yes. And then you're going to put in your real name. So I'm just going to put Simon. Email address, you can just put like simon@mohawkcollege.ca. You don't have to put in a real email address, just something that you're going to have to use later for this lab. And comment, you don't have to put anything. And then if you want, you can change whatever you'd like, or you can quit. But if you want to confirm this, which I do, I'm going to type in capital O for OK. So I'm going to hit enter, and then it's going to ask me for a passphrase. So I'm going to use a passphrase that's not user pass, because I've used that as my password. I'm going to use Mohawk with a capital M. And we're just going to repeat that. You can put in whatever you like, but this is the part that's actually really difficult for a lot of people, because what we have to do is we have to generate random bytes, and we're in a very minimalistic Linux environment, so we can't just click on things with our mouse. So what we have to do is find a way to get a lot of different random bytes, and I'll show you 2 ways that I do it. The first way usually works the first time really quickly, and that's right here. I created a script. You don't have to create a script, but I find that it helps to do things in the background that allows me to do other things on 2 different machines at once. So all I did was this. I created a script, and the first line says I'm going to find every file in the root directory, and we're going to hash it. And this is what he suggests down here. He says this command will take a while to run. While running, it looks at system activity to find randomness. A good way to generate system activity is to use the find to run MD5 sum on every file. And that's what I've done right here. So what I've done is basically hashed every file in the root directory. Then I've sorted it, and I'm just going to put it in def null so that it just disappears. I don't want to keep on adding any kind of space to my hard drive. And the next line is almost the same, but instead of running MD5 sum, I've actually just listed it. And once again, I've just appended it to dev null, which is going to go nowhere. And then I'm just going to copy and paste it a bunch of times, like 100 times. And once I'm done that, I'm going to run the script, and that's going to basically keep going for a long time so that we're constantly going back and forth. And hopefully this is going to accept that as an answer to getting enough random bytes. While I do that, I'm also going to just put in random characters in this screen. So I just random things like this, spaces, we can backspace. I'm just not going to hit enter because I don't want anything to actually run on the screen, because once it's done, you're going to see it will eventually put me back into my normal prompt. So what we're going to do is let's get a PuTTY session going and sign in as yourself. So Simon, user pass, say vi, and you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it myscript1.sh. I'm going to hit I, and all I'm going to do is copy this. So feel free, you don't even have to copy all of this, you just have to copy really this. And that should be fine. And then if you want, like I said, just hit enter so you have a new line and copy these two lines. Just right click and keep pasting. And if you want, paste it like 100 times. So you'll see this number right here. It says at 57. I'm just going to paste it until I see 100. And there we go. So I'm going to save this and quit. Change mod to 777. And that's going to be for my script. Just going to make this bigger again so you can see it. And watch the fireworks. We're just going to run this script. Enter. And it's just going to go. I mean, we're going to leave it like this. We can minimize this guy for now. And here, what I'm going to do is just type in random characters, spaces. Just don't hit enter. You can erase it, numbers, and look at this. It's almost done. And there we go. It's done. I'm just going to erase all of this. You'll know that it's done when you see your name at Yoda in the home directory. So that was really quick. It can take a lot longer. At one point I tried doing this with Alice and it took me over 20 minutes to do. So I'm going to show you another way when we do Alice, and you'll see that doing this again might not actually work the same way that it worked the first time for us. So I have another script that we can use that might help us a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is, now that this guy's done his thing, I'm just going to exit it out, say okay, and this is where we are right now. We've just finished step 2. We can go to 3 and list our keys just to see that it worked. So now that I can go back to my prompt, I'm going to clear this. I'm going to say gpg --list -keys, and I can see that I have a key for Simon with my email address right there. So that's perfect. Let's do this for Alice though. And here we go. Here's Alice's account. What I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to create the script again just before I do this. So I'm going to say vi myscript1.sh. I'm going to insert. I'm going to go back to that script, which is this guy right here. So copy that, paste it, so you can see it's $! exclamation mark /bin /bash. And then I'm just running these commands again, so hopefully you can see that and hopefully this makes sense to you. And I'm going to hit enter. I'm just going to copy and paste it. So I'm going to right click right now. And once again, I'll do it 100 times. You probably don't even need to do it 100 times, to be honest with you, but I'm going to do it anyway, just in case. So 101 times, that's perfect. I'm going to save and quit. chmod 777, my script. Now remember, I'm doing this as Alice. That's why I had to redo the script. So if I type in ls, we only have one of these, and that's fine. So now that we're in Alice and we have this script, I'm going to suggest that you actually make another script. So I'm going to close this guy. And yeah, you know what, I'll save it. I'll save it as my script 1, just in case I have to use it on the test. But I have another script. And it's this. So once again, bin bash. And I put in a command. And the command basically, what this does is it generates random characters. So it's going to generate random characters with these characters, capitals, small letters, and numbers. And then what I've done is I basically said, just give me 256 of them. So I'm trying to use different commands as much as possible. And then I'm going to echo it. And what I've done is I've just basically said echo this and put this in dev null, so it's going nowhere. But it's going to do this once again. We're going to do it like 100 times. And that way, hopefully, this will be the difference between what I did with Simon and what I did with Alice. And hopefully that'll be enough to get this whole random bytes thing working. Trust me, I've done it before and it's just taken so long. So I try to do as much as possible to keep it going. And these two scripts typically help me the most. So what I'm going to do is say vi myscript2.sh, hit I, we're going to paste. So we have our bin bash, we have our command, and we have the echo statement. All I'm going to do is copy this. So I'm going to right click and paste, and we're just going to keep doing that. And now that I've got several, just gonna go up here, do it again, and I'm just gonna do it so many times, like it's insane. So I'm gonna do it about 508 times, which didn't take long for me to do. You probably don't have to do it that long, but it didn't take me long to paste all of this, so I figured why not. So now that I've done it, let's save it and quit. chmod 777 my script 2, and now we have 2 scripts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this window. This will be our main window where we're going to be actually putting the generator in for the keys, but I'm going to open up 2 more windows. 10.1.1.10, log in as Alice, user pass, and I'll do the same thing again because we're going to run both scripts. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm not going to expand these windows. All I'm going to do is /myscript2 in this one, /myscript1. I'm not going to enter until we do this, but on here, I'm going to type in this, gpg --gen-key. Just hit enter. That's the default. Hit enter again, default. We're going to say 2y, enter. Is this correct? Yes. Real name, Alice. Email, alice@mohawkcollege.ca. No comment. We're going to say OK to confirm. And now we're going to put a passphrase. I'm going to type in college with a capital C. Confirm it. And now it wants us to do the random bytes. So I'm going to go into the first window, just hit enter on MyScript1. Let it do its thing. Go right here in this one. MyScript2 will hit enter. And it's already done it. Look how many things it's done already. So now I'm just going to type in random stuff. And again, don't hit enter, just backspace. And if you want, you can go back in here and you can keep on doing the script if you want. It will do random things. And just go back and forth. Like I said, this one will probably take a little bit longer than normal, but that's alright. We're just going to do its thing, and eventually it will hopefully work. So what I'll do is I'm just going to pause the video for a couple seconds, and I'll come back once this is done. But you're going to see it takes a little longer than the first one that we did, and that's okay. Thankfully, hopefully, on your actual test, you won't have to do this twice. You'll have to do it once, and the first time is always easier than the second time. Alright, so we are back, and it took us a lot of time to do that. So you can see the difference between the first time and the last time that we did it. Simon took no time at all when I did the first script, but once you do it a second time, I think it recognizes the randomness that you did the first time, and it's like, I'm not going to keep doing that because that's going to be the same thing as what Simon had. So I ran 2 scripts. I ran it as Rude, I ran it as Alice. I put a lot of different characters in. So you're just going to have to play with it. Just do whatever you can, and don't worry if it takes a long time. And like I said, hopefully on the test it's not going to ask you to do this twice. It's only going to ask you to do it once, and if it's once, that's usually not a bad thing. Like I said, throw my script in there and just write some random words and delete them and put spaces and all that, and it should work. But Alice always takes me a long time, and we are finally done, and I can see that it works because if I type in let's say gpg --list keys, I can see Alice has a key. So hopefully it didn't take you too long. I apologize if it did. It's just one of those weird things, and I wish there was an easier way to do it, but it is what it is. So right now we have a key for Alice and we have a key for Simon. So now we can move on from step 3 and move down to step 4. And it says fetch the public key of Bullwinkle J Moose. So we're going to do this. This is more going to be for things you have to submit to your teacher for grades, but I'm not going to necessarily show you how to answer this. I'm just going to show you what you need to do to complete this section. So for this, we're just going to open this in a new tab. We can see right here, this is his public key. So we're going to copy this, but we're only going to copy up to here. So just where it starts with the dashes, begin PGP public key block. Copy that. Let's go into PuTTY and sign in as Simon, or yourself, I guess. Once again, we'll just change these settings. Okay, so I'm going to make a file. I'm going to say VI, and it's going to be bullwinkle.pub.txt. Enter, hit I for insert, and right click, and you've just put in his information. If you want, go to the very top. Just make sure that everything did actually get in there. And then you can save and quit. Perfect. So we can exit this. And now what it wants us to do is this. We're going to say GPG, and we're going to import, and then put this little guy in there, and type in bullwinkle.pub.txt, which is what we just created. So go ahead and do that. We're going to say GPG --import bullwinkle.pub.txt, enter, and that seemed to work. So if we type in GPG --list keys now, we can see Simon has one, and so does Bullwinkle. And you'll want to know his email address at the very least, because when you do what you're going to have to do later on in this lab, you're going to have to use his email address as his recipient identification. So that worked great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to export and publish our public keys. So this is what we're going to do this for both Simon and Alice, and we're going to just exchange them with each other. So we're just going to run this command. We're on step 6, GPG export armor your name. So put in the name that you put in when you put the name in for your generating key. And then you're going to make your own file. So it's going to be your name.pub.txt, and you're going to give that to Alice. And then Alice is going to do it and give it to Simon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this, say GPG --export --armor, and I'm going to say Simon, and we're going to put this in simon.pub.txt, enter, type in ls, and we can see it's right there. And if you want, you can put that in Alice's folder. We'll just SCP it into Alice's folder, even though we could just open up her folder or her directory, her home directory. I'll just do this just to make it fun. I can say Alice at Yoda and her home directory. Oh, you know what? I didn't configure my host. I usually do, but that's all right. Yes, user pass, and there we go. So we can't do this step, but that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just sending Alice my public key, and then Alice is going to import it, and then Alice is going to export her own, give it to Simon, and Simon is going to import it as well. So let's move over to Alice. So this is Alice right here. Type ls. We can see now we have simon.pub.text, so we're going to import it. GPG --import. There we go. If I type GPG --list keys, I can see Alice has one, and she has Simon as well. We don't have Bullwinkle's because we've only done that on Simon's account, but we don't have to do this for Alice, so that's fine. So now let's make our own public key. So Alice is going to say GPG --export --armor, her name Alice. I'm going to put that in a file called alice.pub.txt, SCP that file, and give it to Simon at 10.1.1.10, and give it to his home directory. Yes, user pass, and let's go back to Simon. ls, we can see Alice is there now, so let's just import, or GPG import alice.pub.txt. simon.pub.txt, and there we go. So now Simon should have 3. And he does. We have Simon, we have Bullwinkle, and we have Alice. So that's perfect. All right, so now we can move on to the next part, which is using the keys. So what we're going to do is we're going to create and publish our manifesto. So it says create a public document that you want the world to see and you want the world to know came from you. Call it first.lastname.manifesto.text. We're just going to say your first name.manifesto.text. And it should contain 1 or 2 statements about what you feel strongly about. So with Simon, let's just say vi simon.manifesto.txt. Hit I, and I'm going to say Simon is awesome. It's true. WQ, save it and quit. And now we can move on to the next thing. It says sign your manifesto with your public key and place the signature in a file called first and last name manifesto signed. And then it gives us the command that we're going to be using. So we're going to say gpg output, and this is going to be where we're going to put the file name with .signed. So it's not the file that we used. It's not going to be this file that we just created. It's a brand new file, and we're just going to call it Simon manifesto.signed. You could have called it whatever you wanted technically. We're just basically going to say this so that we know it's the signed version. Space, and then you're going to say -- clear sign. And this is where we have to refer to the file we actually want to sign. So it's got to be the one we just created, which is the text file. So I'm going to say simon.manifesto.txt. And go ahead and hit enter. And it says you need a passphrase. So for Simon, I had Mohawk with capital M. And there we go. If I type in ls, I can see that I have simon.manifesto.signed. So it says publish your signed manifesto to the FTP server and get your neighbor to basically get it and verify the signature is real. So let's do that. Let's just actually send it scp simon.manifesto.signed to Alice at 10.1.1.10, and we're going to put it in our home directory. Password is user pass, and there you go. She has it now. Let's go see what she's up to. So this is Alice. I'm going to clear this. Look at my home directory. I can see this there now. So let's just check this out and see if it's actually valid. So what we're going to do is we're going to say GPG. We can man into it and find out how to do this, but I'm just going to show you. GPG -- verify simon.manifesto.signed. I'm going to hit enter. And this is what we can see. It says signature made here. And it says good signature from Simon. So it's like, okay, cool. We have the public key. We can see this is from Simon. And then it says warning. This key is not certified with a trusted signature. So this is something you're going to have to figure out down the road for your lab. You have to figure out how to trust it. But we can still move forward with this. That's okay. It's just basically saying right now you haven't labeled anything from Simon as trusted. So even though we have a public key, we can still actually label this, or we can basically say that anything from the Simon is trusted, extremely trusted. There's, I think, 5 options that you can choose from, or 6 options. So there's still a way that you can make this even more trusted. But right now, it does recognize the public key, and it does say that it's a good signature. So it does trust that this is coming from Simon. So don't worry about the warning. That's normal. You will technically figure this out later. And you can see right here we have a fingerprint as well, which might come up down the road. All right. So now what we're going to do is comment on this manifesto in the file, and we're going to create a comment in something called comment.txt. All right. So let's just say vi comment.txt, and I'm going to hit I, and I'm going to say Simon, you are really full of yourself. It's true. And I'm going to save this and quit. And now what it wants us to do is it wants us to say, it wants this comment to be private and only be read by us. So we're going to encrypt it with the public key and store the result in a file called comment for, in my case, Simon, in your case, you. So here's the hint, here's the command. There is a part missing from this command, which is just the file you have to actually encrypt at the end. So here's how we're going to do this. Clear this. GPG dash dash armor dash dash output. Actually, before I do this, let's do this all again really quickly for Alice and send it back for so they both have verified signatures before we encrypt this file. So I'm going to just basically redo this with Alice and send something to Simon first. So sorry about that, but we'll do this very quick. We're going to say vi alice.manifesto.txt, and then we're going to say Alice loves working for Acme Corp. She would like a pay raise though. Save it and quit. Okay, now that we've done that, we're going to sign it. So GPG output, and we're going to say Alice manifesto.signed, and then clear sign alice.manifesto.txt, hit enter. We have a passphrase. Mine was college, so COLLEGE with a capital C. And if I look at this, we now have a signed manifesto. So what I'm going to do is just SCP alice.manifesto.signed, and we're going to send that over to Simon at 10.1.1.10 into his home directory. There we go. And now as Simon, if I type in ls, we can see Alice manifesto signed, and let's just verify that. So gpg -- verify, and then alice.manifesto.signed. Same thing, signature is made, it's a good signature, but warning, it's not certified with a trusted signature. So even though we have the public key, we still could make this more trusted if we wanted to down the road, which we might. So now that we've done this, we're going to make a comment, and Simon's going to say vi comment.txt. We're going to say, hi Alice, I spoke to the boss. Your pay raise is declined. Sad face. Alright, save it, and now we can move on to the next step, which is encrypting it. So we'll encrypt it with Simon first. So how we're going to do this is gpg -- armor -- output, and the output is going to be whatever you want to call it, but they want us, I believe, to call it comment for, and we're going to say Alice. So comment -for Alice, and then you're going to say -r for recipient, and this is where you're going to have to put the right email address in. So for Alice, Alice's email address was alice@mohawkcollege.ca space -- encrypt, and then put in the file that you want to encrypt, which is going to be comment.txt. Hit enter, and it says use this key anyway. We're going to say yes, and it should be done. So if I type in ls, we can see that we now have a comment for Alice, and let's send it to her. So we're going to say, let's clear this, SCP comment for Alice, and we're going to give it to Alice at 10.1.1.10, put in our home directory, user pass. There you go, she has it. So now, as Alice, I'm just gonna clear this, ls, we can see comment for Alice, and it's encrypted. If I just type in comment for Alice with the cat command, it's giving us stuff that we're like, I don't understand that. But it's because it's encrypted. We have to decrypt it first, sorry. So we're going to clear this, and this is what we are going to do. We are going to say gpg -d for decrypt, and then comment for Alice. Hit enter, and it says you need a passphrase. We're going to say college, because we're Alice, and that's her passphrase. And look at that. We can see, hi Alice, I spoke to the boss. Your pay raise is declined. Sad face. So that is how you do these steps. We'll do it one more time with Alice because she's already made the comment. So I'll clear this. Alice, we'll make sure the comment, there it is. That's our comment to Simon. So we're going to just do the same thing. GPG -- armor -- output. We're going to call it comment for Simon -- -R for recipient, simon@mohawkcollege.ca. Make sure you get the right email address. If you need to, type in gpg-list-keys. It'll show you the email address just in case you need it. I just know what mine is. We're going to encrypt and then comment.txt, hit enter. Use this key anyway, yes. And we're going to send it over to Simon. So SCP comment for Simon at 10.1.10, home Simon user pass. There we go. If I go down here, we can see ls. We have a comment for Simon now. And once again, if I type in cat comment for Simon, that's not going to work. And if I type in gpg-d to decrypt and then comment for Simon, now it does. I'll type in Mohawk, which is my passphrase. And look at that. Simon, you really are full of yourself. It's true. So Simon and Alice apparently don't get along, but hopefully it's just fun banter. So that is really how you do this entire lab. There is a part E, which says demonstrate your proficiency. And it basically is going to ask you which question set is right, which one has a good signature and which one doesn't. And how you're going to figure that out is you have Bullwinkle's public key. You might have forgot we put him in there, but Simon has Bullwinkle's public key. And if we go into these question sets, you can basically figure out which one has a good signature and which one doesn't. So you're going to have to do that on your own. You'll just click on this. You'll see this. You'll see this. Just basically copy and paste that into a file and see if it's verified. Same thing with question B. So you're just going to copy this, put that in a file, check it out, see if it's verified. And one of them, like I said, is correct, one of them isn't, and whichever one's correct, you're going to answer those questions. So it says use GPG to determine which file is authentic, answer the authentic questions. So the real difference between these two is, I think, the first one. It says what's better, coffee or tea. So that's going to let the teacher know that you figured out which one's the best. So you have to figure out which one's authentic, answer the questions, sign it and encrypt it. So I just showed you how to do that. So you're going to sign and encrypt it so that only Bullwinkle can read it. So once again, like I said, you're going to need to know the recipient's email. So if you type in gpg-list keys, we can see our keys that Simon has. So Simon with the email address, but we want it for Bullwinkle. So this is Bullwinkle's. You don't need to know his whole name or his comment. You just need to know this right here, which is the email address. So make sure you use that as the recipient email. So this guy right here, when you're encrypting it, make sure that you put in this email. And you don't have to worry about Alice. That was something that we did specifically for this video because we don't have friends that we can throw it back and forth right now. And then you're going to upload it with your public key to the Dropbox. So that is basically what we've already done up here. So this shouldn't be hard if you followed these steps and you understood it. If you have any questions about these steps, by all means send me questions. If you have questions about these, make sure you ask your teacher. But we do have one final step. It says Part F, trusting keys. So in this section, we only have a couple things to do and then we're done the entire lab. And that will be the end of this video. So it's very, very simple. The first step basically says that we're going to compare what Bullwinkle gave to us. He said that this is his fingerprint. I don't know why he knows this off the top of his head, but he does. And he said, this is my fingerprint. Make sure that the public key that you have for me has this fingerprint. And we're going to make sure because as we know, anyone could have just given us a public key and said it's from Bullwinkle, and we might not actually have something from Bullwinkle. So checking the fingerprint can actually be really, really important to do it to make sure that everything is good to go. And it's very simple to do. I'm just going to clear this. And as you can see, actually, before I clear this, we have all this information, but we don't have the fingerprint in any of these public keys by listing the keys. So the way that we're going to do it is actually just typing gpg-fingerprint. When you hit enter, now you can see the fingerprints of each of these public keys. And we can see for Bullwinkle right here, this is his public key, or his fingerprint for his public key. So what we're going to do is just check this out, make sure it matches with this, and if we're good to go, then that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the next step, which is basically we're going to obviously compare it, see if it's right, and if it is right, we're going to tell GPG that we do actually trust this. So I can tell you right now, this is right. This matches this right here. So I'm going to tell GPG that we actually trust this. So how we're going to do that is I'm going to clear this. And remember when we checked Alice's sign manifesto, it said it was a good signature, but we don't necessarily trust it. What you can do is you can actually change that. And how you change it is you go to GPG -- edit key, and you're going to type in the person that you want to change. So we'll say Bullwinkle. Enter, and then you're going to get the screen, and it's going to say, what do you want to do? And we're going to say trust. So just type in trust, hit enter, and then it's going to say, what do you want to do here? Do you want to trust them with one of these guys? And what you're going to say is which one you want. 1 says, I don't know or won't say. 2 is, I do not trust. 3 is, I trust marginally. 4, I trust fully. And 5, I trust ultimately. So if you ultimately trust Bullwinkle, you can type in 5 and hit enter. It says, do you really want to set this key to ultimate trust? And we're going to say yes, hit enter. And you're going to be like, okay, cool, that's fine. It's going to say trust is ultimate and validity is unknown. But basically, it says, please note that the shown key validity is not necessarily correct unless you restart the program. So all we're going to do is quit. And that's it. That's all you have to do. And if you want, you can verify that these are working. And now when you verify it, it should actually not give you those long statements saying that there's all these problems and stuff like that. Like it's a good signature, but it's not necessarily trusted. It will trust it now, and it will say it's a good signature. So hopefully that helped. If you have any questions about this lab, like I said, let me know. I know that we did some tweaking so that we could actually send the files back and forth just to see what the output should look like and what it should do when everything is done correctly. But again, I know that I went really fast with this, so hopefully if anything did confuse you, you'll have the time to message me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So again, thanks for watching. This is the last video for test 2. I will see you in the next video series, which will be all about test 3. So see you then. Bye guys.